Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Welcome to Athlete of the Week, the first
Good
ever
morning.
episode. Just you wait your turn. Let me let me introduce the show first. So, welcome to Athlete of the Week, first ever episode, the show where we bring on only the most prestigious and talented athletes among us, voted and debated with my back team for weeks on end. And this week we're very proud to have our first guest, Athlete of the Week, Zack Morris. So he's a man who has recently completed 50-kilometer ultramarathon last week, but he's no stranger to the athletic world. His background includes playing at a quote fairly high level unquote hockey standard. He's also competed in previous ultramarathons, doubles in the park run, his best being 8th. And he also enjoys pétanque. He's quite a competitive pétanque player. Other achievements include once successfully kicking a 52-meter drop goal just under the halfway line, and his best 18-hole golf score is 13 over par.
Actually, it was 88, but I got a 14 on a par 4. So
that's pretty good. So yes, without further ado, I don't think I've missed anything. Oh yes, the other thing he does is he's a self-proclaimed gym rat. So he gained over 20 kilograms of muscle mass since I've met him, which is in about 7 years. So yes, we're very excited to have you on the show, Zack. How are you feeling?
thanks for having me. I feel very special to be the first guest on this very well-famed podcast. Feels like you must have been scraping the barrel quite a lot to get me on here, but no, happy to.
A lot of people said no.
I believe that.
So let's get right into your recent and I suppose what earned you the athlete of the week title among voters, but your recent 50-kilometer ultramarathon race. Tell me about that.
So yeah, it was good fun. I ran it. It was under a company called the Ultra X company. They do ultramarathons all over the world. And this one they did in the Peak District. You could either do a 2-day run, which you did 75k the Saturday and 50k the Sunday, or you could just go in and do the 50k on the Sunday. So me and two pals, Kit Thornton and Matt Price, who've done similar runs to this before in the past with me, gave it a go. We booked it in probably the bleak midwinter, thinking that by that time, 8 months down the line, we'll be in peak physical condition and ready for it. And as the months went on, that clearly was not going to happen, but we gave it a go anyway, and we all finished pretty well.
Nice. And top 100, I heard.
Yeah, I think it was about 370 people that did it. We came in top 100. About 7 hours 50 was the official time, which I thought was reasonable. But then the winner of the 50k was only about 2 hours quicker than us,
really?
Which feels closer than it should have been.
Yeah.
But it was fine. We've done similar runs before in the past, and the trick we've learned is, well, the big secret of ultra running is that you don't have to be an athlete. Sorry to ruin your podcast. You just kind of have to get on with it and do it. And you could finish an ultramarathon by walking the whole way, I think. Pretty much walk up the steep hills, run the rest if you can.
Was it all flat or was it an uphill course?
It was fairly hilly, so it's about 2 kilometers of incline over 50k, which kind of sounds like more than it is. When I looked at they do like a graph of the race and they post it online. It looked horrific, but they were fine. It was actually fine.
Yeah. And what was it like? Was there a certain point where you hit the wall, or because I've only done the furthest I've done is a half marathon, which I can't really imagine going past that, even a marathon stage, but let alone 8 kilometers further than a marathon.
So
um, so is there a stage where you hit the wall and you just have to keep going, or
I think for this one, surprisingly, there wasn't. We actually just kind of got on with it, kind of always waiting for the wall and thinking, when's this going to hit? Is it going to be 40k? Is it going to be 35k? And it never really did. So we kind of just, I think the trick to that is just pacing yourself and you like having a good lot of food on the way around. Like we ate a lot of food. We put carb powders in our drinks. Um, yeah, like we weren't short of energy on the way around, which is one thing. And then I think the fact that we knew we've done it before, the run we did before this was 80k, which there probably was more of a wall. I think we all hit a wall maybe with like less than 10k to go, which I guess is a lot further than this. And I think there's a natural feeling of like anxiety builds up before these events because you think I'm undertrained, I'm gonna absolutely bomb out. But I think by the time you get halfway through, you're just like, get through this next bit, and you don't have to run again for a year or ever again if you don't want to.
Yeah, and I imagine it requires quite a lot. As you said, 8 months ago you booked it. So did you plan out a training schedule, stick to it week by week? Bump up your miles every week or so, and then by the time it came around, you were sort of ready for it? Or talk to me about your training preparations.
So I think the highlight is that I was ready for it because I ran it in fairly good time, but wasn't fairly more than I expected it to be like an 11-hour finishing in the dark, crying with painful ankles and knees. But I think it definitely showed me that you don't have to run to train for endurance sports necessarily. You just run to the point where your knees and ankles aren't going to be like, what the fuck is this, on your joints. But then pretty much any exercise I think is good, just building your cardio, building your general fitness. Like I probably did 3 runs in the 2 months before this race, and none of them were more than 8k. But
Wow.
in the last 12 months, I've probably on average been to the gym or been climbing or been swimming, probably 5, if not more days of the week. So there's always some exercise going on. But I mean, you talked about half marathons. Half marathons are so much harder than ultra marathons because your legs, like you're running at a speed that your legs are genuinely hating it, and your lungs, you have to like actually breathe and stuff. Ultra marathons, you kind of just, it's like imagine going on a really long walk and then just the next step is, oh, we'll just jog down the hills. Doesn't add much, and then you're not even jogging. You can just like shuffling along on the flats, just trying to keep moving. And I can't remember the question now, but no, I didn't train in a typical manner to do a running event, but training that I maybe accidentally did seemed to work reasonably well.
So what you're saying is, other than your active lifestyle, which you have all year round, doing other things, but it sounds like you didn't actually train at all for this,
No, definitely not.
other than 3 runs, which is definitely unorthodox. A lot of people would say you can't do that, or
No, that's because people have this like unrealistic understanding of what ultra marathons are. They sound so extreme. It's technically anything I think more than a marathon, and I think that's probably the big secret. Once you've done one, you realize that a lot of the people that line up next to you aren't athletes. A lot of the people that finish ahead of you, you'd walk past them in the street and be like, they'd struggle to run for the bus. But it's just like it's probably just putting up with it for long enough, and then you do it. I would say.
Yeah. And this is what your third
Yeah,
ultramarathon, you said? And
second I was
third
done
one.
a marathon.
And have you ever trained for one before properly, or would you say you adopt this similar
I
haphazard?
think whenever you look at like the if you like Google, as I was, the 2 weeks before the race, how can you train for an ultramarathon in 2 weeks and whatever like that? There's all these very strict regimes where you build up the distance and then you taper and stuff like that, and people get really, really locked into it. And I think they follow. Not that this isn't the opposite of what I did, but they follow a really strict regime of running they have to do, and they're actually looking at the numbers on the spreadsheet that they're ticking off rather than how they feel. So I think most people that would train for an ultramarathon will probably end up overtraining and enter the race tired with some sort of niggle. Was obviously was never going to be a problem for this, just due to like undertraining. But yeah, people kind of picture it being like a big scary thing. It's really not. So people think, oh my god, you'd have to train for months and months and months to do this sort of thing. And I think I'm well aware that I've got youth on my side. I think most people that are active, that are our sort of age, could, unless they've got other injuries, could probably just get on and do one. They tried.
Yeah. Inspiring. Definitely a different way of approaching an ultramarathon. Haven't heard that one before. So staying on this area, wrapping it up. Do you have any more ones planned? Even marathons, ultramarathons coming up, or is that you for a while?
Um, yeah, no, I'm gonna do some more actually. We all just really enjoyed that race. So 3 of us were there. We also saw quite a few of Kit's family on the Saturday, and Kit's girlfriend was with us at the end of the race. It's like you go to a beautiful part of the world, you spend a day doing this horrible thing, and then you just drink pints in the evening. And none of us were like injured. None of us were like pushing through the last 20K, just hating it. So since the run, we've all been messaging quite a lot, different possible runs we do. I think we're going to aim to do a shorter, like maybe a similar distance ultra, 50K or so, in the spring next year, in mind to do maybe a bit of a more intense one in the end of the summer.
Cool. Class.
Hasn't put at the moment.
Very good. So we'll talk a bit more about your background of other athletic accomplishments. So the most notable, you're a big hockey player at university. That was your thing for a while. You've since sort of haven't played for a while, is that right? You've retired from that, or?
Yeah, I haven't played since uni.
Yeah. Is that something you will take back up again, you think, or happy to have played? And
I think I played, obviously at school you have to play all sports and stuff, which is great. And I played a reasonable high standard for the like youth ages. So then I probably played a bit of a higher standard at school than I did at uni, because uni was just playing for the best club in Cardiff, the Medics. But I think a lot of that is obviously the social commits you to it. Playing is obviously great fun, but looking back on it, you realise how much of your time you spent playing hockey. It was training once or twice a week, 2 matches a week, and then once you stop playing, you realise how you can do all sorts of other things, like climbing we've got really into, just general being active. I do quite a lot more surfing now. Your weekends are so precious for doing stuff when you work, and I wouldn't really want to be playing some organised sport on the weekends. I went to training actually once in Glasgow. Then you quickly realise that you're going to be expected to train, obviously, and so if you get trained and get picked, the best case scenario is you lose, however many hours on a weekend and a couple of evenings in a week. I'd love to play hockey again, but I'd like to play on the sort of format where people could just text me and be like, "We're man down. Are you free?" I'd like to play hockey, but I wouldn't like to commit to paying membership fees, which are like 400 quid a year, and it's a lot of time. When because I've played so much of it in the past, I feel like I'll always be able to go back to it if I want to.
Yeah.
But there's more fun things to do now, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you said about commitment, the fact that it's a team sport, you're not just reliant on yourself, but a lot of other members. And when you're working, you've already got that with work, so it's a lot harder to commit to. And as you said, you probably want to just have a bit more flexibility with your time, do sort of more individual things, but also more social things. Like you said, surfing, climbing, um, stuff you can do at any time of the day. It's not like the tide's going out at 3:30. Everyone has to be there at that time or something like that. Um, so yes, you're saying now you pick these sort of sports now, surfing, climbing. Anything else you do other than those two at the moment?
Still gym pretty regularly. No, not really athletically. I do a bit of running, obviously. I do a bit of swimming occasionally, but yeah, I'd say it's mostly gymming, climbing,
Yeah.
surfing when the weather's good,
Talk to me
or when the sun's
about
up. Um,
talk to me about where you're at the gym. You've always been pretty consistent at that, having these gym goals, trying to get bigger or leaner or stronger. Where are you at right now? What weight are you at the moment?
I reckon at the moment I'm about 89 kg. I think I'll be just under 90. I think I was just over 90 a little while ago, but since then definitely lost a bit of weight, probably just because I was trying to get a bit lighter for the run. Um, I would say that it's one of the contentious topics in my head because, as you say, I've spent part of the motivation for the last few years was just wanted to get stronger, put on muscle, but then you realise that like that is detrimental to pretty much every other thing that I do. So things like running, climbing, surfing are like directly worse by being heavier and less flexible, which I think the gym also makes you. But it's just still quite nice, the natural like winter's coming up, and I could now just be like balls to the wall, eat whatever I want, go to the gym regularly, and it's be pretty easily put on like muscle. But then, eventually, obviously, I want to be like flexible, and I like the idea of doing like cycling, swimming, maybe triathlon someday, and just I think I know at some point I've got to change what my goals are because I don't want to be like this. You see all these guys and girls that used to be like jacked and they're now 35 and they're basically just fat, which is nothing wrong with that, but I think that probably wasn't their ultimate goal. Like some of them might have looked like me now, which a fair bit of muscle, fair bit of chub, and there's one way you can go. You can either keep getting stronger and probably be less healthy, or you could be like, right, that's enough. So I think this might be the last winter of bulk. Maybe I'll bulk this winter, try and hit some
crazy
numbers, some lifting numbers that I'd be happy with, and then after that, just be like, right, try and stay leanish.
Prepare for the future.
I've never really been lean. I'd have to work on getting lean.
Yeah.
Which would be miserable, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose the people who have a lot of muscle mass, it takes a lot of maintenance to keep it that way when you get older, because you're right, it could easily sort of turn into fat. Kind of, I don't know, the image of like Wayne Rooney comes to mind or someone like that. I don't know. He was never that muscly, but he was always a big guy. And as soon as he stopped retiring, you could see it all just him just ballooning out into fat, I'd say. Whereas, yeah, if you're looking at like Cristiano Ronaldo, he's always kept himself very lean. So even as he gets older, it's probably you can see that he's just keeping that physique. So, might be. easier to
you know,
maintain.
you know yourself, like the trick to getting lean is probably mostly nutrition and obviously being active. Um, and then you see, I think probably the reason a lot of these people that were like maybe muscly and strong when they're younger just end up being a bit bigger is because they're so used to just pounding in the food. They're so used to like just that feeling of being full.
Mm.
Whereas I kind of want to get to the point where I'm, you know, used to eating less, running more, being a bit trimmer, just getting used to um, that before you're just like, I don't know, while you're younger. It's good
Yeah.
to. It's quite easy to change routines while you're younger. You know, you don't want to get to your mid 30s and be like, right now I'm going to be a runner and a swimmer. Then it'd be much harder than you know. Ultimately, being good, a bit being sort of reasonable at every type of sport is probably a good aim for the next few years. So
Mm.
like, obviously still some weightlifting, keeping strength, being able to run marathons and ultra marathons, being able to climb, which is obviously a lot harder when you're heavy.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, so you're thinking of diversifying out rather than specializing in one particular craft. I think you've always sort of done that anyway, but even less so in the future. So I suppose if you want to if you really want to go balls to the wall in gym, then as you say, your goals are in conflict with a lot of other of the sports that you're doing, and it does require you to be quite single-minded if you want to be like gaining weight, getting really strong, and sacrificing a lot of other sports. But you say now that as you get older, you want to branch out, diversify more into lots of areas and being like reasonably good at a lot of sports, which I think is probably a good way to a good way to do it. Probably protects you against injuries as well. Makes you more of a diverse athlete. Um,
we
yeah,
we've spoken about this before though quite a lot. Like you yourself also have various different aims which can pull like yourself in different directions at
yeah,
certain times, and we've both come to the conclusion that you have to sacrifice not being quite as good at any of the things you try and do. And it's like that there is like a battle in your head, like, should I just choose this for 6 months, be very good at that, and then be very good at that for 6 months? Or should I try and do, it's like it's like trying to get as strong as possible while it's trying to become quicker and quicker running.
mhm,
I feel like you'd end up just being in this like no man's land.
yeah,
You probably like fit, but you'd probably it'd be hard to really hang your hat on being happy with one element of it.
yeah. And yeah, we've definitely talked about this a lot in the past. I remember my first great conflict was was when I got into the gym in university, and I was previously a runner and realized that as I was getting bigger and stronger, I was becoming less of a runner. And I was like, what am I? Am I a gymmer or am I a runner? And I just couldn't comprehend doing both at the same time. But I think over time you sort of realize that there is a balance and there is a way you can include both conflicting things. But you do have to give a bit of ground to both. You have to sacrifice and come to terms with the fact that you're never going to be the best runner. Like, in order for me to be the best runner, I'd have to lose potentially like 10 kilograms and, not have any muscle on me, not be strong, but, and just, put ridiculous miles in. And likewise, if I wanted to be the most jacked person in the gym, I'd be going to the gym 5 times a week at least and be having to be heavy, having to eat a lot, and I wouldn't be as good runner. But there is a middle ground, I suppose, which, yeah, if you come to terms with, you realize you can do both, and you just have to realize that that's what you want. Um,
What would you say now? So looking back 7 years, obviously I think you came to uni as like pretty good runner. Obviously, I know you've done some crazy fast runs when you're younger, but then what would you, looking back, wish you'd done less gymming, less running, same as what you've done?
um, I think there was times in university I had running in the forefront of my mind, and I had gym in the forefront of my mind. I sort of oscillated between the two for a while, and then there was even parts where I had like had them eat in equal measures and stuff. So I was like learning throughout university to try and get the balance right. And it didn't mean having the balance all the time. Like as I said, sometimes I would have a big running goal, or like training for half marathon, or having a big gym goal. But I think it was learning to not stay with one particular element for too long. And that balance was something I've carried with me, and I enjoy it the most when I have balance between the two. I think that's an all-around athlete, and I think it helps me with like sports like football, like being a decent runner and also having decent strength is important, because I find if I'm like a very good runner but I'm not very strong, then my big limiting factor is my strength. Or conversely, if I was had a lot of strong and muscle mass, I'd be very strong. But not having the cardio to boss to run around on the football field is a big limiting factor. So it's that balance, making sure that there's no real obvious limiting factor, so you can be the best athlete you can. And when it comes to sport, for me, is what I enjoy the most. And it might even be something else. Like I realized recently that like I was very tight and I was getting injured, like niggles and injuries a lot, and just not being very flexible. And I realized that was potentially the big limiting factor. So I had to address that element to it. So I think that sort of all roundness approach is when I'm the most happy about who I am and what athlete I want to be, which is someone that's all round. Yeah. Um.
I think that's right. And you probably realise that when you're focused on any goal, we've also spoken about this. Your other like secondary goals come along as well, because if you're focused on, say, you're focused on gymming, and you're thinking about your nutrition, maybe not drinking as much, not smoking as much. um, oh, funny. Um, then you probably aren't. Um, then you're probably like generally being healthier. Like actually, I've done the quickest park run time I ever did was on the same day actually as the heaviest squat I ever did. Um, which goes to show, I think I was training for gym and strength and stuff, and then just probably as a byproduct was much healthier than I'd been for a long time. And this was also when I was at uni playing cardio sports like 3 or 4 times a week, so you kind of maintain the running.
Yeah.
But if you're moving really positively in one direction, you'll often find you get some.
Sorry, so some technical difficulties there, as expected on the first time, but we'll iron these things out eventually. I think I was asking you about how how progress in one area of athletics, such as the gym, may help you. You were saying it would help you in maybe a park run scenario. You said your heaviest squat was the same day you ran your fastest park run. I was wondering how much of that do you think is mental, like being used to challenging yourself, being used to discomfort, being used to pushing yourself.
Um, I think there's probably mindset involved, but I think obviously these, my fastest park run and my heaviest squat are not impressive, in the slightest. So I don't think it's like a great mindset thing. You're probably just feeling good. I think I did the run first, and I was like, sweet, that was quicker than I've done. And then I went to gym or something in the afternoon. I was like, I'll go for it. It wasn't like I went from one week doing. It wasn't like a huge leap. It was like I was probably on track to do the heaviest squat I was going to do. So I think it's just that the running didn't change it. But I think in the last, I don't know, the weeks before that, months before that, I'd probably just been doing a bit of both, bit of running, bit of weights, and it just happened to be on the best day. Yeah, that's my insight on that.
Yeah, brilliant. Is there anything else that you want to say to the the millions watching at home.
The millions. Oh, the millions.
Well, I can only, maybe there will be millions eventually, so let's assume.
What I would say, I guess the reason you wanted me to do this is because I did the ultra marathon. I would say that the one thing that I am happy with is that things like that are not like written off in my head. Like, I think for a lot of people, the idea of a marathon, an ultra marathon, a triathlon are just like things that they'll never do. It's not in their wheelhouse. But I would say that, you know, obviously it'd be a step up if you're not active, but if you're active, just sign up to one. Signing up's the hardest thing. There's no shame in deciding halfway through that you can't finish it. But I think the vast majority of people that book one will finish it. Like you, host, I think you should do one.
Yes, I haven't done one yet. Haven't even done a marathon yet, so maybe you will inspire me. But I've always said when I'm 30, I'll think about doing a marathon. Until
You've
then,
always said that. I've never heard you say that.
you haven't been listening hard enough then. I've always said like focus on the fast stuff, the shorter stuff until then. And then when I'm 30, you know, there's no rush. The endurance stuff, like you can be really old and be pretty good at that. So
but
yeah, great.
Doing something like this, something like a long run that I maybe at one point wouldn't have thought was possible has also made me think that, you know, I'm not a good swimmer at all. But it's made me think that I probably could do a triathlon or a long swim if I train for it and put my mind to it. So yeah, it feels good to do an ultra marathon, but it's actually not very I don't know. I think it's very attainable for anyone who might be able to do one. That's the great secret of ultras, is that you could probably just walk it.
Yeah. Well, there you go, folks. Just do it. Don't build it up in your mind. Do what Zack does, and don't make it a thing. Don't make it too hard, and just do it, because it's not a big deal. That's his secret. Where can people find you?
Where can people find me? Do you want my address or? You'll find me on Instagram, ultraathlete12. That's probably someone else's account.
Yeah, probably.
You can follow me on Instagram. I'm sure I'm not that hard to find, but I don't ever post anything, so there's really no point. You could write to me if you want.
Great. You've just missed out on hundreds of thousands of followers once this goes viral, but okay. Great. Thanks very much for joining us, Zack, in this first episode. And
lovely to chat with you.
Thank you for your patience and all these technical difficulties. Hopefully this hopefully this gets aired. Who knows? It might just have to be a mock thing, one for the archives. But it's a pleasure as always. And
I'd also like to say that in the European Cup of Whist, I am 16 versus Alex is 14, and he's never won a whist tournament.
Right. Okay. Great. Thanks very much, and join us next week on Athlete of the Week. Bye.
Bye.